Hey everyone, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're going to jump into just 4 verses from the Quran's Surah Hud. Now, I know that sounds short, but trust me, they tell an incredibly powerful and honestly a pretty cautionary tale about a leader's ultimate legacy. So yeah, let's dive right in. So we're going to start right at the climax with this absolutely chilling line. It just immediately brings up this massive question, right? How does a leader, someone who's supposed to guide and protect their people, end up leading them to the most wretched end you can even imagine? To figure that out, we've got to rewind and see how it all started. You see, this story doesn't just pop up out of nowhere in the Surah. It's actually placed here very strategically, kind of like a final, powerful example that ties together the arrogance of Pharaoh with a pattern of defiance we've already seen in other nations. It really is the ultimate case study in failed leadership. Okay, so it all kicks off right here. God sends Prophet Musa, that's Moses, on a divine mission. But, and this is key, he doesn't go in empty-handed. He is equipped with 2 absolutely critical things: ayats, which means signs, and something called Sultan Mubin, a clear authority. So what were these ayat? Well, they were undeniable, very public miracles. We're talking about things like his staff transforming into a serpent, or his hand glowing with this brilliant white light. These were meant to be clear physical proofs that his message was coming from a much higher power. Now, this term, Sultan Mubin, is really interesting. This actually goes way beyond just physical miracles. It refers to a kind of manifest authority, the undeniable moral, spiritual, and intellectual legitimacy of his message. This was a proof that wasn't just for your eyes. It was designed to appeal to your heart and your mind. So, the truth is presented crystal clear. But truth always requires a choice. And this is where the real conflict begins. It's a choice between divine guidance on one side and human arrogance on the other. Prophet Musa presented this clear proof to Pharaoh and his inner circles, the elites, the ones who held up his power. And what did they do? They chose to follow the command of Pharaoh. And then the verse adds this really sharp little commentary that Pharaoh's command was not at all discerning. It wasn't wise, it wasn't sound. And this contrast just lays out the 2 paths so perfectly. On one side, you have the prophet's call, which is based on divine truth and that clear authority we talked about. And on the other side, you have Pharaoh's command, which is rooted in nothing but his own ego, his pride, and deep-seated corruption. The verse uses a very specific, very important Arabic word here, rashid. It means to be correct, guided, just, and sound. So by saying that Pharaoh's command was not rashid, the Quran is making it absolutely clear that his leadership was the total opposite of true, sound guidance. So, where does a path like that lead? Well, following a command that has no wisdom, no guidance, it has devastating consequences. And those consequences, they stretch far, far beyond this world. And here we are, right back to that terrifying verse from the beginning. But now it has context, right? A leader's responsibility is so huge that it doesn't just end when they die. In the hereafter, Pharaoh is still leading his people. But this time, it's a march straight into damnation. I mean, just think about that imagery for a second. In this world, Pharaoh was the commander. He led these grand processions of soldiers and servants. He was a symbol of absolute power and control. But in the next life, that exact same role gets twisted into something just horrific. He's still leading a procession, but now it's a procession of condemned souls. And he's right there at the front, leading the way. And this is where you see the bitter, bitter irony. In the ancient world, one of a leader's most vital jobs was to guide their people to a source of life, literally, to a watering place. But the verse calls hell a wretched watering place. Pharaoh's leadership was like a poisoned well. He promised his people glory and power, but he delivered them to a place of eternal thirst and fire. It's just such a powerful, tragic metaphor for failed leadership. And the consequence isn't just some punishment waiting for them in the hereafter. No, it's a verdict that's sealed right here in this world too. It's a legacy that becomes an eternal stain. This final verse really brings it all home. It says they were followed by a curse, not just in the next life, but starting right here in this one, with their humiliation, their destruction, and their infamous legacy. When we think about a reward or a gift or a legacy, we associate those words with something good, right? Something honorable that you leave behind for people to remember. But the verse just completely twists that idea. It says, wretched is the gift which is given. Their ultimate reward, the gift that their leader gave them, was nothing less than a curse that follows them through this life and straight into the next. So why is this short, sharp story placed right here? It's not just another story about a nation that went astray. It's actually the moral climax for the whole first half of the Surah. This story is the capstone. It is the ultimate example, the archetype of worldly power standing up in defiance of divine truth. After hearing all the other stories of past nations, Pharaoh's example is what seals the deal. It's the ultimate warning. See, throughout Surah Hud, you see this pattern building up, from the mockery the Prophet Nuh faced to the defiance of the people of Saleh. But Pharaoh represents the absolute peak of this rebellion. It's one thing to mock a prophet or defy a command. It's a whole other level of arrogance to have immense worldly power, to claim you're God yourself, and to oppose God's messenger with the full might of an empire. That's why his story is the most complete, the most notorious case of arrogance leading to ruin. And that leaves us with a question that is absolutely timeless. This story, thousands of years old, is asking us to think about guidance and obedience and accountability. It forces us to ask ourselves, what separates a leader who guides their people to water from one who leads them to fire? What is it that makes a legacy a blessing instead of a curse?